Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has referred the 2019 Ukraine impeachment whistleblower and former intelligence community Inspector General Michael Atkinson to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation. Joining us now is Rod Martin, political analyst and founder and CEO of Martin Capital. Good afternoon, Rod.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Now, the referrals follow Gabbard's recent declassification of intelligence, suggesting the whistleblower may have misled investigators and had political bias. So what is your reaction to this?
Well, that's exactly what the declassified documents show. And it's part of a much bigger picture because you have the whistleblower who gives misleading information, withholds exculpatory information, and the Inspector General knows. He knows there's bias. He knows there are problems with the case. He suppresses that when Congress needs it to make a competent decision. So in something that was already bogus, how on earth do you impeach an American president for withholding aid to a country, Ukraine, that we aren't allied with, and we're not at war with Russia, and the withholding was a matter of days anyway? How do you impeach an American president over that? But hey, let's juice it. Let's add false information and the withholding of exculpatory information too. So this is not just a criminal referral against these two people. These people are absolutely bad actors. They should not be allowed in public service. This is also a big issue, I promise you, for Kash Patel's grand conspiracy investigation going on right now in the Southern District of Florida. That actually deals with the overall attempt to remove this president unlawfully from office, which went on from 2015 well into the period of Joe Biden. That is likely to be an indictment down there.
So in your view, having said all of this, what might accountability look like in a situation like this?
Well, the very first thing is heads actually have to roll. There actually have to be consequences. There have to be firings. There have to be eliminations of pensions. Ideally, there would be criminal prosecution, which of course Tulsi Gabbard is now trying to initiate, and we'll see what the Justice Department does with that, but I think I can predict that. It is just not okay for your government to lie to you on this level. It is not okay for elements within the government to try to overturn an election. That is third world. We might as well be talking about Maduro or Castro or the Ayatollah if we're going to operate that way. So these need the strictest punishments under our laws so that in the future, nobody in either party ever attempts anything like this again.
So I think I understand that how you feel about whether the whistleblower was right or wrong, but was the process that brought the complaint forward fair, transparent, and properly supervised?
That's exactly the problem. You know, the problem is even more the Inspector General than the whistleblower. You're going to get complaints from people that may or may not add up. That's just true in any workplace environment. And maybe they even believe what they're saying, but you're supposed to have somebody who's a neutral arbiter who looks at it and says, okay, this doesn't quite smell right, but oh, this part is okay. It's going forward. That didn't happen here. The Inspector General actively hid what he knew to be problematic about this from Congress at the very moment Congress is deciding whether or not to impeach an elected president. It's just horrifying.
So let's talk about the public. Do incidents like this change the public's trust in institutions?
I think that trust in American institutions is at an all-time low. I don't know how it could go much lower. And that is a real problem for civil society. Every so often, somebody will do a poll on, whether the people of this or that state want to secede from the Union or have a civil war or some crazy thing. And the numbers have been getting higher over the last 10 years, not lower. Am I predicting a civil war? Of course not. But what I'm saying is you have an erosion of trust that makes it very hard to conduct government. It makes it very hard to serve the people. And eventually it can break out in civil violence, as we've seen repeatedly over this last decade. You have to restore trust in government. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about a whistleblower case like this, where the guy was clearly making up false information and hiding exculpatory information, or you're talking about the bogus labor statistics we got out of BLS all during the Biden administration. If you can't count on what the government says, beyond a certain point, you can't make rational decisions and bad things happen. But above all, it erodes our ability to conduct a free society.
Now let's flip the script a bit here. I'm curious to see what you think about how this episode would be treated if the parties were reversed. Say if a Democratic president was being impeached under the same circumstances, what would the conversation look like?
Well, first of all, if a Republican inspector general acted like this, we would all hang him from the nearest lamppost. It's absolutely not acceptable. We absolutely must clean our own houses. The Democrats need to start doing that too. You must have an honest government, especially in matters that have criminal or major civil consequences. So if this were the Republicans, first of all, every channel except possibly yours and Fox and Newsmax would absolutely be hanging the Republicans. It would just be a bloodbath, in the metaphorical sense for the Republican Party. We'd get wiped out in the midterms. And of course, none of that's going to happen to the Democrats, because the Democrats get absolute carte blanche from those same media outlets. And it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for the work you guys do. We can actually get more than one side out to the people of this country so they can make their own decisions.
So how do we, or the current administration, prevent controversies such as this from happening in the future?
Well, the first thing is consequences. There actually has to be something bad happen to the people who acted badly here. If that happens, it raises the cost to the next person who's tempted by it. This is why it's important that the grand jury has subpoenaed Jim Comey. This is why it's important that Tulsi Gabbard was down in Fulton County when they raided the election office. It is essential that we actually get to a point where trust can be restored in government. You may not like your government, you may not like the people running your government, but you believe they're pretty much telling you the truth most of the time. If we can get back to that, and we had it in my lifetime. I know you're much too young for that, but for me, I'm 56 now. I remember when people largely trusted their government, and they were right to do so. And those days are gone. So we have to actually have some real consequences. And then we have to institute hiring and supervision processes that allow the removal of bad actors before they do something bad. And that brings us back to the Humphreys executor case that's before the Supreme Court, and other efforts of this administration to give the elected officials in our system more power over the army of millions of unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that trust come back. Rod Martin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.